Welcome back to SheCan, where role models inspire. They inspire and guide us by sharing their stories and their insights and their lessons learned, which is all incredible advice for all of us. I'm so excited to talk to Brooks Bell today. Brooks, welcome to SheCan. You were diagnosed with late-stage colon cancer at the age of 35. You survived and you have dedicated your life to making sure people know all about this illness and get access to early life-saving colonoscopies. Colon cancer is predicted to become the leading cancer killer for adults under 50 by 2030, which is not something that I knew, and it is preventable by doing colonoscopies and finding things early. You founded World Class, a nonprofit apparel brand designed to raise awareness about colon cancer, with 100% of all profits going towards increasing access to colonoscopies, especially for underserved communities. It kills more people than breast cancer and prostate cancer, etc. You also had a viral collab, I believe, with Ryan Reynolds, who increased colonoscopy appointments by 36% because he documented his. So, Brooks, tell us more about your journey and your way through this diagnosis and coming out the other end and setting up World Class.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad to be here, Stephanie, and thanks for your time today and for helping us to get more people excited about colonoscopies. So, my journey is I was an entrepreneur in my 20s and 30s, and I started a small tech company when I was 23, and it was called Brooks Bell Inc. And we did digital marketing and A/B testing for some large American brands, and had 50 employees, and was doing well. And I was traveling the country, and then one day in my 30s, I was at a conference and went to the bathroom, and I looked down and I had blood in my stool. And so I was freaked out and was in my hotel room. And I went ahead and called a doctor and explained what was happening. And she said, "Oh, you're fine. It's just a hemorrhoid. We all get those." And so, I thought it was fine, and went on with the day. But then it kept happening. And so I thought, you know what, that doctor didn't actually examine me, so I should go get examined and get a second opinion. And sure enough, when I saw this other doctor, she was like, "Oh, it's still, I didn't find a hemorrhoid, but I think that's what it still is." And so since she thought it was a hemorrhoid, but she didn't find it, I just felt like the logic didn't add up. And I thought I should go for a third opinion. And so I called a gastroenterologist and got in to get a meeting and described, at this point, I've been bleeding for 2 months. And they said, "You're not too young for colon cancer, and we should get a colonoscopy. It doesn't actually seem like a hemorrhoid." And so I had a colonoscopy 4 days later, and it was stage 3 colon cancer in my sigmoid colon. And ultimately, I had to have 10 inches of my colon removed, and I did 3 months of high dose chemotherapy. And thankfully, I'm cancer free now. They caught it, even it was stage 3, so it was advanced, but it was early stage 3 and was still very treatable. Um, and I had a 13% chance of death over the next 5 years, but it sounds like a lot, which it is, but it could have been much worse. And if it was a millimeter deeper into my colon wall when it was discovered, um, it would have been more of a 20% chance of death, maybe even higher in the next 5 years. So I was very lucky to have caught it when it was, and I'm cancer free today.
Brooks, I'm so happy about that, and I'm so incredibly inspired that you now set up World Class. Tell us more about it. I think one of your taglines is "A great ass is a terrible thing to waste," which is fun. So you're using our derrieres to sort of put a really positive spin on really what you're trying to do, which is bring colonoscopies to as many people as possible, raise awareness, and
Mhm.
by selling your fashion items to raise money for that.
Yeah. So it was kind of a long road to fashion. I did not start there. I actually started it. It's been in the business for 9 months, and I was diagnosed 6 years ago. And so it's a very new brand. It took 5 years before we got started. But in the meantime, what led to starting this company, it started right after I was diagnosed. And I was, it was life-changing, experience. And so stepped down from running my company almost immediately.
Mm.
And I put another CEO in place. I said, maybe this company is making me sick. Maybe it's these red eyes and the stress. And so I thought it might be the company. And um, I thought that the company needed a new healthy CEO that would no longer be able to do the job. But I coped with the diagnosis and my treatment by really diving into all the data. I had so many questions of like how can I get colon cancer in my 30s? And and why and I thought maybe every one of my employees, everyone should get a colonoscopy. Can I pay for colonoscopies for my whole team? I was sort of having all these questions and so I was trying to find the answers. And the things that I learned some shocking facts, which is a couple you have shared, but I'll share them again. The most shocking was that I found that colon cancer is a top three cancer.
Mm.
I mean, when you think about like cancers broadly, there's so many cancers. There's like 200 of them. And we hear a lot about breast cancer and we hear a lot about prostate cancer. But you hear about brain cancer and we hear about lymphoma or, kids dying of cancer and just these horrible stories. If you quizzed me before I was diagnosed with colon cancer about what are the top 10 cancers, I would have gone through all of the body parts I can think of. I would think brain, blood, breast, prostate, lung, liver, just go through the systems I can think of. And probably at the end of that list, I would have added colon. Because I don't know, I don't think of the word colon very often. I don't use the word colon.
No.
And, maybe like gut, but even if you think about your large intestine, you think of it almost as an exhaust pipe, not that useful for anything, and
Yes.
gross. You don't want to think about an exhaust pipe. And so I don't think of it as an actual organ. So I was shocked to find that colon cancer is a top three cancer. And more so, more people die of colon cancer each year than breast or prostate cancer. It's more deadly than the famous ones, and because it's very deadly and a lot of people get it. So not on my in my awareness at all. And then I learned that it's skyrocketing in young people. It's gone up 50% in people under the age of 50 in America and Europe since the 90s. If you were born in 1990, you have 4x the likelihood of getting a colorectal cancer than if you're born in the 50s. So it's enormous and it is very scary to be a young person because you're often too young to be qualified to get a
Mm.
colonoscopy.
Mm.
Um, so there's a lot more headlines now than there were before. And then I learned the very good news, which is that unlike most cancer, including breast cancer and prostate cancer, you can prevent it. That like breast cancer, you just sort of wait till you get a tumor and then you can cut it out, but you already have cancer. You're considered a cancer patient once you have the tumor and you have to do invasive surgery and radiation and hormone blockers and all this stuff as soon as you get even an early stage. So it's a big deal to even, to get breast cancer and you can do nothing to really avoid it outside of doing a full double mastectomy, which is, quite a big step. But with colon cancer starts as a polyp, a
Mm.
precancerous state.
Mm.
It always starts as a polyp. And so we have about a decade of a decade of having a heads up by having polyps that we may get colon cancer. And so because it starts as a polyp, that's amazing rather than a tumor,
Yeah.
and because we have the chance to find it. And with a colonoscopy, they go in, they look for polyps, literally searching with a camera, looking for your polyps. And then if they find one, they go in and literally snip it out with little like, baby scissors and pull the polyp out of your body, same time while you're still asleep. That's incredible. That is
It's
incredible
incredible, yeah.
that colonoscopies have the power to do that. So you wake up and you basically can't get colon cancer until you grow another polyp, which may take years. I mean, that's really powerful. And I learned that no one thinks people don't know that. We think about all the reasons we shouldn't get a colonoscopy, the reasons to delay it, be afraid of it. We talk about it very, we joke about it, as we just talk about all the ways that it's uncomfortable.
Mm.
And we don't talk about why a colonoscopy like is so amazing and powerful and a big privilege to be able to get. So that became my passion, to start being one of the first people to really, really talk about why colonoscopies are amazing. So I started to call myself the colonoscopy enthusiast, started making t-shirts that says colonoscopy enthusiast, start trying to create some humor around it, and that's positive humor, and getting people to start opening up and learning about colonoscopies, learning that they prevent colon cancer. And I wanted people to be more afraid of colon cancer so that they are also more excited about getting their colonoscopy on time.
Yeah.
Um, and in the meantime, I thought we needed a new celebrity to do a colonoscopy and talk, and have bring some focus on it. And so I was very lucky to be able to get Ryan Reynolds and his friend Rob McElhaney. They both got colonoscopies and did a little video about it, and was global news when they published it back in, I think, 21,
Mm.
and led to a 36% increase in colonoscopy appointments in America.
Amazing.
Possibly like prevented cancer in up to 1,000 people. So it was so amazing. It'll be the coolest thing I will have ever done, I think. Probably the biggest impact I'll ever make, trying to put that together. And then that was done. I was thinking, what's the next thing? What's something that can that isn't just having an impact, but is fun, and that is like I was focusing on more my personal goals of like how can I have an impact, but also not be stressed and not be frustrated, and how can I be in a place that's very dark and heavy, as cancer space, there's like it's difficult to be in the healthcare space all the time, and because there's a lot of people who will say no.
Mm.
There's a lot of systems and structures to work around, and I thought, how do I just go straight to the people and continue to try to get people excited about colonoscopies in a way that brings me joy, and where I can be creative. And so I thought, actually with fashion, even though it feels a little bit like, lightweight, not that serious, it's also something that affects people that anyone can participate in. People who don't know anything about colonoscopies do not really want to know. Basically, the people I want to talk to are the ones who are not already talking about it, not thinking about it, but do like to look cute, like to wear something that's comfortable. And I don't know, it's a great way to change culture, is really
Really.
through fashion.
Yeah.
And no one's done it before. No one has ever made a colonoscopy like themed fashion line that's actually like high quality and legit, like legit 100% cotton made in LA, fashion first kind of line. So
Making
we're seeing if we can do this.
colonoscopies sexy, yeah, and you are
Yes,
definitely
that's right.
doing that, and I love that. Um, Brooks, what do you feel has supported you most through your cancer journey?
What has
So we
supported me
can give some
most?
tips or advice to people who might have just been diagnosed now.
Yeah. Uh, well, what I have learned kind of, going through this is that you can't predict how someone is going to feel. Everyone feels very different. They react differently. Um, there is no best practice on what to say or what to do.
Mm.
Like for me, I didn't like people asking me how I'm doing just because because I felt very bad. I didn't want to have to
Mm.
say like, I'm doing very bad. And
Mm.
I like couldn't be positive to them. I didn't want to have the conversation about how bad I felt with everyone, that maybe they weren't that close to me. So I didn't like it when they asked me how I was doing, but I did like it when they just said, "Hey, I'm thinking about you."
Mm.
Or just sending me flowers, because I didn't have a burden of having to respond. I was
Yeah.
tired, I was depressed. I didn't want to have to be social. And so for someone just to say, like, hey, I'm out here sending you good vibes, here's a gesture. You don't have to acknowledge it or you don't have to do anything, but I'm just thinking about you. I loved that. Um, I think I've spoken with people, some people don't like that. You know, they want people to reach out and they want to have long conversations. They just want to be supported in a different way. So that's um that's the thing that's difficult is that everyone's different and you don't know. No, there's no like just
No,
it's
I'm
just
sure there is no way of right and wrong
yeah.
necessarily, but I often think, and I've been doing it relatively often lately because things around me have happened, where I
Hmm.
just think, can I just ask you, how would you like me to deal with this? I'm a really good friend. How
Hmm.
can I support you? And actually, in one case, she said, no one's ever asked me that. She
Hmm.
lost a child and she said, no one ever asked me that. And I think as I'm 500 interviews down but still learning to sort of be in the space with people to have difficult conversations, and I'm not a therapist, right?
Yeah.
So but I love having the difficult conversations, and I love to put that out in the world because I feel, I'm 53 years old, and really I don't know instinctively how to deal with people going through real hardship.
Yeah.
And I want to be close to them, and I don't want to, retract because I don't know how to deal with
Yeah.
them now, or what I should be saying and not saying. And so I
Right.
just said, listen, if I ever say anything wrong, please tell me immediately. I love
Hmm.
to know, and let me know how you want to handle this.
Yeah.
And sometimes
Maybe the
it
main
also
thing is
changes.
just don't disappear, you know,
Yeah.
like to keep checking in, even if it's just saying you're thinking about them,
Mm,
just continue to check in and just stay around, you know,
mm,
stay present in their life, and they may or may not have the energy to really engage, but maybe keep offering ways to help. Say like, hey, can I come over and like let's go on a walk? You know, do you want company on a walk this week? Or go past out like outside the picking up dinner or that kind of thing, but sort of saying, can I step over and keep you company?
mm,
Or can I run an errand for you? Do you need someone like here is like a if you need a quick run to the pharmacy to grab you, you
mm,
know, it's some antibiotics or something.
yeah.
This is like at any time, any hour, call me and I will make that errand for you. It's a little things that are often like feels too intimate to actually ask someone to do for
Mm,
you.
mm,
Um, I had a thing like I remember having this reaction and I needed to get some prednisone as soon as possible. And I didn't have anyone to go grab me that prednisone. And I could not get to the supermarket myself to get it. And so I thought, who can I call immediately to go run this errand for me? And I just didn't feel like I had people close enough, like who I felt like I had the right to ask them. It was the middle of the workday, you know, who can stop, do that? You know what I mean? So I think being that person, making it clear that you are that person, I think that would be a wonderful way to support people.
yeah. So, how do you feel we can all advocate for ourselves better, Brooks? Because you insisted, right? You were repeatedly told that this would be a hemorrhoid. And so I've had many conversations around that with people who have in fact waited longer than they should have, maybe, right? and
Hmm.
and because either you're too young, or you're just not in a category where anyone would think you're at risk. And so how did you is that at all something that you would like to spread more awareness about?
I think that's a great question. And I think my answer would be is I think what made me such a like so good at advocating for myself was this belief that I was not invincible.
Mm,
I had open heart surgery when I was 10.
mm,
And was the first time when I learned as a child that if I didn't get this surgery, I might not live past age 20. But I learned this fundamental thing that my body needs to be managed. Something can definitely go wrong.
mm,
I, can die. And I think that learning as a child kind of shifted how I feel about my body.
mm,
And I just know that something can happen to me. And so I think most people don't have the perspective, nothing, they've never really been to the hospital. They haven't had a major thing happen to them. So they just assume that doesn't happen to them. It
Mm,
happens to other people.
mm,
And so I know that bad things can happen to me. I know bad things can happen to others. And that ultimately, in the end of the day, you're responsible for your body, no one else is. You take all the downside risk of not looking into your body. I think a lot of people are very afraid of bad news. Changing that perspective that they have of themselves is very healthy and invincible. And so they avoid any bad news because the stress of that.
yeah,
Really, like you should be embracing the bad news because it gives you resilience and it gives you the skills to be basically get in front of it and make slightly bad news like very dealable, now versus something that might kill you down the road if you don't face it immediately.
yeah. Brooke, so what change do we need to see in the world in regards to colon cancer?
I think that we need to start spreading the awareness that colonoscopies prevent colon cancer. Those three words, those are, or really four words. That is my whole mission is to get more and more people saying those words. And and it may not sound that dramatic of a set of words, but it is dramatic because it is most people think of it as we want to catch cancer early. And with most cancer, that is what we want to do. We want to catch breast cancer early. We use words catch it early is that is the default. Well, preventing it fundamentally different than catching it early.
Mm,
You know, it sounds not different, but it's so different.
yeah.
And so with colon cancer, we can have that. We can prevent it. And so, and we can prevent it without having to change our lifestyle. We don't have to become like sinless, super clean. We don't have to, I mean, we can still eat the red meat and we can still smoke and drink and do all the fun things in life that we shouldn't be doing. And that you have to kind of stop if you want to prevent all the other cancers. We can do all of that. We just have to go like get a little baptized, like medically speaking, and have our polyps taken out. And so it's like this 30-minute procedure you do once a decade that boom takes one of the big three cancers off the table for you.
Mm.
And so we should be so excited about it. And I want everyone to be like talking with their friends and family um, about colonoscopies. You could ask your family, your parents, if they had their colonoscopy, how many polyps they found, and share like if they found a polyp, they took it out, they might have prevented cancer. Ask if your friends are over 45 in America, then definitely start asking them if they've had their colonoscopy and encourage them to get it if they haven't. So that is the change I would like to see because the more colonoscopies we get, the more people will not hear that they have cancer in the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah. I don't know anyone who did it and didn't have a polyp, right?
Yeah,
Including
1 in 3
myself.
people have polyps by their mid 40s.
Mm,
1 in 3. Just think about that
mm,
next time you're out, like to
mm,
lunch with two girlfriends. One of you has a polyp,
yeah.
statistically speaking. And by the time you're in your 50s, it's 1 in 2. Polyps are so common.
Mm,
They're not a big deal on their own, but many of them can become cancer at some point. And believe me, if you get a colonoscopy and that you found out they took out polyps, you will feel so much relief. You'll feel so good about yourself. It will be all worth it. It's a really good feeling to know that they found something and now it's gone out of your body.
yeah. And I always think there's not so much to it, right? I really
Yeah.
hate hospitals. I hate interventions. I am literally
Hmm.
the scaredest person. That is one of the things that I found actually absolutely fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's actually talk about that just for a couple of minutes. A lot of people are so afraid of colonoscopies. So if your listeners are afraid, that's very normal. There's several things that a lot of people are afraid of. They're either afraid they could be afraid of the fast, not eating, is
Mm,
a little scary for people who don't fast regularly. The prep is the biggest one. The prep is two parts. There's the drinking of the nasty drink, and then there's the pooping that happens after that. There's a lot of anxiety about like incontinence or wearing a diaper, or like there's all these things that make people
no.
very afraid of this whole
Yeah.
this whole process. And then, or like, I don't know, being violent somehow, like you imagine the worst food poisoning you've had. You imagine that's how this is going to be. And then the third is the colonoscopy itself, the idea of having something go up your butt and very up your butt and like what that will be like. And so um, a lot of times it's people imagine it to be so much worse than it is. The fast, you can have gummies at lunch, and the fast is often you stop is you kind of only have to last till like 5:30. And then you get into prep mode and you're not hungry anymore. So it's a short fast and you can have all the soda you want, all the sugar you want. So you have
Exactly.
energy. Then the prep, you can have pills now. You don't have to drink anything nasty.
Mm,
Sometimes you can have Miralax, which has no flavor. So there's options that are flavorless. So that's taken off the table. Then the pooping, it's gentle, it's easy, it's not like food poisoning. Just stay at home, have a cozy home, night in, and it's over in a couple of hours. And then, in the actual procedure, you have the best nap you've ever had, especially in America. I don't know what they do in other countries, but it's like uh, you you're out for 30 minutes, you wake up, you feel fine. It doesn't have same anesthesia kind of reactions, and you feel really good because you get the news immediately, whether or not they found something, and you go home and you kind of have a spa day. You're relaxing. You read, you're not supposed to drive or do anything. You just go, have a guilt-free afternoon at home resting.
yeah,
And that's it.
exactly. So, Brox, have you changed your life in any way, shape, or form since you went through colon cancer?
Well, I left my company. I started to do, I learned about all these new industries, healthcare and nonprofits. And I've been in learning mode for a while. I started to sleep in. Started taking care of my body more. Um, just took my body very seriously, my health and my energy. Really started to take care of my energy, trying to build better connectivity with knowing how I feel. Started doing a lot more therapy and started to think about how do I like get rid of anxiety? How do I bring more joy into my life? Just get very focused on these things that are very important. So I took that seriously much more than my career. And then of course I started world class with a fellow colon cancer survivor because I realized that creativity and joy and fun and friends are something to be taken seriously. And so we thought that building a brand around colon cancer would be a really creative and challenging, kind of thing to do and very impact driven, but also would be fun, to try to attempt to kind of create something that we would want to wear every day, have something of the highest quality that is actually cool, LA cool, it's not just a cancer t-shirt, but like an actually legit cool thing that we want to wear and I don't know, build a community of other women and men who like have the same aesthetic, same values, kind of find our people through fashion and feel like we're directly impacting the problem, which is that colonoscopies, there's no awareness and there isn't enough access. And so, how do we like kind of have it all by building our friendship with each other and doing this thing, learning how to build a fashion business and doing it something that's never been done before, of trying to make colonoscopies sexy and and building a whole thing around ass. Like we have an ass hat. Why doesn't an ass hat exist? That seems so obvious. We as a hat that just simply says ass on it. And I don't know. It seems like I don't know. It's very funny to be able to make these ass jokes all the time. So there's a lot more joy and creativity in our lives now.
So, where can people buy that?
They can buy it at worldclassclothing.com. They can follow us on Instagram at worldclass_clothing. And but yeah, where we ship most places and 10% of every sale immediately goes into a colonoscopy fund that will be redirected to paying for colonoscopies in underinsured communities. And then it's owned by a nonprofit. The whole thing is a nonprofit. So ultimately, everything at the end of the day ultimately funnels. All net profits also will make their way into the colonoscopy fund.
Brooks, and what does success look like for you?
it's not financial anymore, like this is nonprofit. There's no profit motive. Success is like f feeling fulfilled, hanging out with friends, having love in my life, having joy in my life, um, waking up, having energy, for the day, and good people, just feeling great about what I'm working on, having new things to learn. That is having good energy in my life. Like all of that is what success is now.
Brooks, and do you feel you've got any ongoing challenges that you need to
Ongoing
reframe?
challenges. Um, I think health will always be a challenge. I think it will always be scary. I mean, that should be an ongoing focus for everyone. As you get older, health is always something to manage and monitor.
Mm.
Um, I had recently had another scare. I was diagnosed with stage 0 breast cancer because I'm doing mammograms twice a year. So, and it was been snipped out, lumpectomy. I'm good to go now. Um, so I don't really consider it breast cancer, but technically it is. And so, because it's precancerous. But another little thing popped up and had to go through that. And so, this sort of almost by knowing I'm not invincible, increasingly not invincible as I get older, there's always going to be kind of, there's just like this urgency to stay healthy and strong and monitor everything and, feel like I have a lot to do in this lifespan.
Yeah,
But that stress of knowing that at some point this will end, is that's the challenge for me.
yeah. So, what are your plans and goals? Tell us what your goals are with World Class. Do you have any personal goals?
The goals with world class are, to continue to build community. We're launching a new collection this fall in October, and continue to try to scale the company, but also scale it while having fun, So it's not just pure financial and scaling, trying to do it at this, focus on it being a really enjoyable experience. Um, and then, other goals are just, I mean, I don't know, like my goals these days, like, let's see, the theme of the last 5 years of goals. I think this this year, my personal goal is to trust myself.
Mm,
Last year it was pleasure. Before that it was embodiment. Before that it was fun, and before that it was self-compassion.
mm,
And so these tend to be kind of these self-development goals of kind of reinforcing kind of the mental health, creativity, and feeling like very connected and in alignment with myself. So that's really how I think about stuff now, not like financial goals or scaling goals.
Brooks, and what takeaways would you like our listeners to have from your story?
Self-advocacy, to advocate for yourself. I think that's the most kind of direct thing related to colon cancer. That colon cancer is a very big deal, and we need to take it very seriously. And there's something that we can do. I want everyone to help kind of get the word about colonoscopies, and for them to make plans to get their own colonoscopy as soon as they are able to. Um, and I think maybe another takeaway would be, I mean, of course, I would love people to come check out World Class and see what the ass hat looks like, see what the World Class logo looks like. Give us feedback on this brand and support us. Um, and I think for themselves, I mean, I think that I think it's very reasonable to focus. What's really important in life is having people in your life that are positive, that love you, that you love, and taking care of yourself. Um, you know, Pleasure and fun and joy, I think, are things to take very seriously, and that I think has almost its own set of stigmas around it. And I don't know, I think that's kind of the entire point of being on this earth, I think. And so that's certainly been one of my personal takeaways, and I'd love to share that with your readers or your listeners as well.
Brooks, I'm so grateful that you told your story today on SheCan for our listeners. I'm so excited by what you're building and how you're giving back after your diagnosis and healing, years of healing that you turned into a real purpose. So thank you so much for your time, for everything that you are and that you do. And I would love to leave our listeners with this notion that colonoscopy, 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 go and get one as early as you can. Try and get access, see if your healthcare providers need it, and listen to your body. And is there anything that you need to advocate for yourself right now?
Thank you so much.